McClaren was an impresario, visual artist, singer-songwriter, musician and clothes designer, and a boutique owner. He was known for combining these activities in an inventive and provocative manner. As a promoter and manager, he is best known for his work with the New York Dolls and the Sex Pistols. In October 2009, he was diagnosed with cancer, which affected his stomach lining. He died from the disease on the 8th of April 2010 in a hospital in Switzerland. According to his son, Joseph Corr, McLaren's last words were, "Free Leonard Peltier." McLaren's funeral included Westwood, Paul Cook and Glenn Matlock of the Sex Pistols, and celebrities like Bob Geldof, Tracy Emin and Adam Ant. His funeral was held in a deconsecrated church in central London. The Sid Vicious version of My Way was playing in Highgate Cemetery as his body was interred. The death mask on McLaren's grave is a cast of his face after his death. Mask specialists use moisturiser to keep the moulding compound from sticking to the deceased's hair and face, make the cast using alignite, which is actually what dentists use to make dental impressions. The cast is then removed from the face and wax is poured in over the cast, and the sculpture can then be finished. Prize fighter Tom Sayers fought bare-knuckled in England. Despite being only 5 feet and 8 inches tall and weighing no more than 150 pounds, Sayers regularly fought much bigger opponents. It was his final fight against American champion John Camel Heenan that gave him his lasting fame. This fight was widely considered boxing's very first world championship. The referee called a draw after spectators invaded the ring and the situation descended into chaos. A betting ring featuring Sayers and Heenan was held at the Croydon Steeplechase meeting in December in 1864. The description of Sayers was haggard, thin and wretched. Sporting Life went on to report that in February 1865 that he was very seriously ill and confined to his house in Camden Town. He showed signs of consumption exacerbated by diabetes according to the medical examination. Sayers was well enough to make a visit to Brighton in April 1865 and he appeared to be robust and strong. But sadly by the month of August, while staying with his sister, the disease had consumed his lungs and he would not survive for many weeks. He died on the 8th of November 1865. His funeral was held a week later and it attracted some 100,000 people. According to the Spectator magazine, the bier was drawn by 4 sable-plumed horses and the crowd that accompanied the coffin stretched for more than 2 miles in length, and Sayers' dog sat alone in the pony cart. Tom was buried in Highgate Cemetery and his marble tomb is guarded by the stone image of his mastiff called Lion, who was his chief mourner at his funeral. The 1963 Great Train Robbery was masterminded by English criminal Bruce Reynolds. Reynolds spent 5 years on the run before being sentenced to 25 years in 1969. At the time it was Britain's largest robbery, netting nearly £3 million, which is equivalent to £56 million today. He was released from prison in 1978. For most of his life he had been involved with crime, spending time in and out of prison. After he robbed the train, Reynolds fled to Mexico where he assumed the name Keith Hiller. His wife then joined him later on. After returning to London, the family moved to Torquay in Devon. Reynolds' family settled into his former holiday town of his childhood. Whilst watching the London criminal scene, the Metropolitan Police realised Hiller was in fact Reynolds and picked him up in Torquay on the 9th of November 1968. Reynolds pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. By the 1990s, Reynolds was living on income support in a flat in Croydon after being released from HMP Maidstone. Reynolds either spent or had taken away money that he had gained through crimes. He died on the afternoon of the 28th of February 2013 at the age of 81. His son Nick sculpted Reynolds' death mask and is the same man who done Michael McLaren's. George Wombwell was a famous menagerie exhibitor in Regency and early Victorian Britain. He founded Wombwell's Travelling Menagerie. He bred and raised many animals himself, including the first lion to be bred in captivity in Britain. He named it William in honour of William Wallace. Wombwell was summoned by Prince Albert to look at his dying dogs and discovered that the water was poisoning them. The prince asked Wombwell what could he do in return for the favour. Wombwell replied, "What can you give someone who has everything?" However, he did request some oak timber from the recently salvaged Royal George. From this he had a coffin fashioned for himself, which he then proceeded to exhibit for her fee. Wombwell died in 1850 and was buried in his Royal George coffin in Highgate Cemetery under a statue of his lion, Nero. Noel Coward was an English playwright, composer, director, actor and singer. He was known for his wit and his flamboyance. His plays and songs achieved popularity in the 1960s and 70s, and his comic novel Pomp and Circumstances was about a life in the British colony and met with more critical success in 1960. Coward won new popularity in several notable films later in his career, such as Around the World in 80 Days and The Italian Job. In the late 1960s, Coward had discovered he had thickening, hardening and loss of elasticity of the walls of his arteries. At the age of 73, Coward died at his home in Jamaica on the 26th of March 1973 of heart failure, and he was buried 3 days later overlooking the north coast of the island.